In this life, I refused to follow my parents' arrangement for a marriage of convenience and did not marry Lee Yihui, because in my past life, I had married him with all my heart, yet he always carried a torch for another woman. His one true love, he deceived me for a lifetime. On my deathbed, he shed his gentle and caring facade, his face contorted with rage as he hurled accusations at me. If your family hadn't used their business to pressure my parents into forcing me to marry you, I could have lived a happy life with Yeye. Yeye's suicide is all your fault. I've been utterly disgusted by the sight of you every single day for all these years. If it weren't for raising the son I have with Yeye, I would have taken you to apologize to her long ago. Your child, there's no such thing. The child you gave birth to is mine and Yeye's, so all along, I was just a surrogate for that despicable couple. Even the child I've raised all these years isn't even mine. I closed my eyes, seething with bitter resentment and unwillingness, but in the blink of an eye, I was back on the day my parents proposed the marriage alliance with the Lee family. This time, of course, I flat out refused. Mom, Dad, I won't marry Lee Yihui. Both of my parents were taken aback. My father asked me, "Didn't you always say, ever since you were little, that you were going to marry that Lee boy?" That's right. Everyone in our social circle knew that I had been following Lee Yihui around since childhood, even declaring I would marry no one but him. In my past life, when our families decided on the marriage alliance, I agreed with sheer delight and without a moment's hesitation, but I never could have imagined that Lee Yihui, who had never voiced a single objection, would come to hate me for it. He resented me for not opposing the arranged marriage, forcing him to swallow his pride and marry me for the sake of the family business. He even blamed me for the later depression and suicide of his true love, Xu Qingyu. He harbored such deep hatred for me, yet dared not show a hint of it for the sake of our family's partnership. He let me raise a child who was not even mine, only to deliver a final, crushing blow that left me to die with bitter regret, given a second chance at life. How could I possibly love such a cowardly wolf in sheep's clothing, who didn't make jokes like that when they were kids? But I've grown up now, and he's just not my type. I don't want to marry him. My parents exchanged a glance. My mother said thoughtfully, "The Lees actually mentioned to your father and me that they'd like you to be their daughter-in-law, to bring our families even closer." I panicked. "Mom, you didn't agree, did you?" Mother shook her head and said, "Not yet. I told them I had to ask you first." Father chimed in, "Well, if that's what our daughter says, then let's drop the matter. Besides, I've always had a feeling that young man from the Lee family isn't really fond of our Tang Tang." Mother also nodded repeatedly, a look of relief washing over her face. In the end, the parents decided they would go and turn down the Lee family within the next couple of days. It was only then that I realized my parents had never approved of this marriage. In my past life, I was so completely devoted to Lee Yihui that I never noticed any of this. Now that I've refused the arranged marriage, he shouldn't have anything to say about it. But I never expected that on the very night my parents turned the Lee family down, Lee Yihui would call me Yi Tang. What's with the attitude, Lee Yihui? What's gotten into you now? You know perfectly well what I'm asking. Why did you reject the marriage alliance? I don't have time for your little games. If you want to marry me, fine, but don't make things more complicated. I was a bit taken aback, but after a moment's thought, it all made sense. In my past life, this was precisely when old Mr. Lee made a critical misjudgment. The company's funding chain snapped, plunging the Lee family to the brink of bankruptcy. Lee Yihui later claimed that if his father hadn't forced him to sacrifice for the family, he would have abandoned everything and run away with Xu Qingyu long ago. It seems this time, he's been similarly compelled to come win me back. How absurd. If he truly had the resolve to abandon everything, what's he doing here looking for me? I said coldly, "I don't like you, so why can't I refuse the marriage alliance? The Yi family is perfectly fine. We don't need a marriage to save us." "You don't like me? How is that possible?" His voice was full of shock, which then turned to anger. "And what do you mean by the rest of that? Are you saying my family isn't good enough to marry into yours?" He accused me. "I never thought you could be so mercenary." I replied calmly, "You've misunderstood. I simply don't want to come between you and Miss Xu." Panic crept into his voice. What are you talking about? Qingyu and I are completely innocent. His words cut off abruptly. I laughed. I never mentioned her name. Anyway, I wish you both happiness. Goodbye. May you two be stuck together for all eternity. Just never bother me again. But the Li family didn't give up. After that, they kept coming to see my parents every few days, trying to persuade them to agree to the marriage alliance between our families. I was utterly fed up. To get away from it all, I went abroad for a month-long trip, as it turned out. On the very day I returned home, all 3 members of the Li family showed up at my door. Over that month, the Li family's situation had gone from bad to worse. In his previous attempts to save the company, Mr. Li had already piled up a mountain of debt. If he couldn't secure new investment soon, it would be the end of the road. Not only would there be no chance of recovery, but they would be trapped in a bottomless pit of debt for the rest of their lives. The 3 of them entered, each with a different expression. Mr. Li looked haggard, while Mrs. Li wore a face full of anxiety. As for Li Yihue, his face was cold and hard, his eyes burning with humiliated fury. I looked at Li Yihue. He was exactly the same as he had been at this time in my past life. Back then, he was always in low spirits and would often drink himself into a stupor. Seeing him like that, I thought he was unwilling to go through with the arranged marriage. Though heartbroken, I told him I could try to persuade my parents to call it off, but he reassured me, saying he did want to marry me. He was just unhappy that his father, Mr. Li, was trying to drag my family down with his company's troubles. His words moved me deeply. To make him happy, I convinced my parents to use most of our liquid assets to bail out the Li family. This caused us to miss a crucial opportunity for our own company's growth, and in the end, it allowed the Li family to gain the upper hand over us. Looking back now, I realize his constant drunken misery back then was all because he couldn't be with Xu Qingyu. Seeing Li Yihue like this, his father gave him a hard slap on the back. Got your tongue. Li Yihue just kept his lips pressed tight. He glanced at me before shifting his gaze elsewhere. Seeing he was getting nowhere with him, the father forced a smile himself. This silly boy heard Tang Tang was coming home today and was dead set on coming over himself. He and Tang Tang had a bit of a misunderstanding recently, and he's been regretting it. But he was too embarrassed to come and talk to you himself, so he had to ask us old folks to swallow our pride and come along with him. Old Mr. Li chuckled amiably, but I knew he was just using his status as an elder to make it awkward for me to refuse on the spot. As long as I didn't give a firm no, today, they'd have wiggle room. They'd definitely seize the opportunity and push their advantage. Mrs. Li chimed in with a smile. Yihue explained it to us. That Xu Qingyu is just an ordinary friend. He felt sorry for her and looked after her a bit more. It's just that both Yihue and Tang Tang were angry that time, and in the heat of the argument, one thing led to another, which is how this misunderstanding happened. So what they really meant was that I was being too emotional and shouldn't have argued with their precious son. After saying that, both of Li Yihue's parents shot him meaningful looks. Li Yihue hesitated for a long time before reluctantly saying, Tang Tang, you've really got the wrong idea. I cut him off. I get it. You and Xu Qingyu are just friends, right? Mr. Li chimed in eagerly. Yes, exactly. He relaxed and said with a smile, it's good that the misunderstanding is cleared up. It would be such a shame if the 2 young people missed out on a wonderful match because of this. I looked at him in shock. Uncle Li, I think you've misunderstood too. Li Yihue and I are just friends. Besides, I'm still young. I'm not thinking about getting married so soon. The expressions on the faces of the 3 Li family members shifted through a whole spectrum of colors. It was quite a sight to behold. Afterward, my parents politely saw the family of 3 out, not even inviting them to stay for dinner. After they left, my mother was still a bit uneasy and asked me, Tang Tang, did you really mean what you said earlier? I nodded emphatically. I couldn't be more serious. I really don't like Li Yihue at all, so you can set your mind completely at ease. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I also knew it was my own past words and actions that had caused them such concern. It's a good thing the Li family is about to go bankrupt. Once they do, my parents will see how indifferent I am and finally be at ease. A few days later, a friend from my circle returned from abroad. so a few of us got together to welcome him back. During the dinner, one friend looked at her phone and exclaimed, "Wow, that's pretty wild." She then sent the video to the rest of us. In the video, a man was holding a woman against a lamppost, passionately swapping spit with her. A car drove by with its headlights on, and in that instant, I saw the couple's faces. It was Lee Yi-hui and Xu Qingyu. I smiled and clicked to save the video. This is a real gem, might come in handy later. That night, just as I finished washing up and was about to turn off the light and go to bed, I got a call from Lee Yi-hui. His speech was slurred on the phone. He sounded drunk. "Yi Tang, I've made things clear with Qingyu. I'm getting married, and I won't be seeing her anymore." I yawned. "Congratulations to you." He got flustered. "Yi Tang, you know I mean marrying you asterisk," I said dismissively. "Lee Yi-hui, I think I've made myself perfectly clear before. You and I are just friends. And that's all I see you as. Who you break up with or who you marry has nothing to do with me." Lee Yi-hui said irritably, "Yi Tang, I've already humbled myself enough. If I'm offering you a way out, you'd better take it. Don't push your luck, or I really won't marry you. You'll have nowhere to cry about it then." Oh, are you done? If you're finished, you can take your precious olive branch and shove it. I don't want it. Thanks, I'm exhausted. Goodbye." With that, I hung up the phone. A few days later was the banquet for Mr. and Mrs. Lee's 30th wedding anniversary. In my past life, it was on this very day that Mr. Lee had announced the marriage alliance between our two families. In this life, of course, there would be no such alliance between the Yi and Lee families. Judging from that phone call, Lee Yi-hui hasn't given up. The Lee family might try something at the banquet, but thankfully, with the video my friend sent me today, I'm at least prepared for whatever comes. On the evening of the banquet, the 3 members of the Lee family were already waiting at the entrance early. They looked positively delighted to see us arrive. To be honest, if we had a choice, none of us would have wanted to come. The Lee family and ours were on good terms, at least in the past. They haven't completely gone under yet. If we cut ties with them the moment they fall on hard times, people would surely call us heartless. My father had also prepared a generous gift and came to offer his congratulations. As soon as we stepped inside, Mr. Lee greeted us with a beaming smile. "Old Yi, you're too kind. Your presence alone is more than enough." There was no need for gifts. Mrs. Lee gave Lee Yi-hui a nudge and said to me with a smile, Tang, this boy Yi-hui says he has something to tell you." This time, Lee Yi-hui wasn't scowling and looking displeased like last time. Instead, he gazed at me with a gentle expression. Then, Lee's mother said to my parents, "With us elders here, the young couple might feel a bit awkward. Why don't we step aside and let them talk?" My parents looked at me, and I gave them a reassuring glance. After both sets of parents had left, Lee Yi-hui whispered, Tang, I've missed you so much. I don't know why you've suddenly become so cold towards me, or where this huge misunderstanding came from. But the truth is, it's always been you that I liked." A shiver ran down my spine. And I quickly took 2 steps back. "Stop, who you like or don't like is none of my business. I don't know what I did or said wrong to make you think I would ever marry you, so let me make this perfectly clear one more time. My feelings for you are strictly platonic. If you keep harassing me, I'll have no choice but to make sure you disappear from my life for good." His right hand was clenched into a white-knuckled fist, a clear sign he was holding himself back. After a long pause, he suddenly laughed. "Playing hard to get really doesn't suit you. Yi Tang, I'll say it again, take the out I'm giving you, otherwise, you should know you're not my only option." I immediately pretended to gag, then turned and walked away, leaving him with a face like thunder. Midway through the banquet, Mr. Lee took the stage to give a speech, after sharing some heartfelt words about his deep bond with Mrs. Lee. He suddenly shifted the topic. "Everyone, I actually have another piece of wonderful news to announce today. My son, Yi-hui, is about to marry Miss Yi Tang, the esteemed daughter of the Yi family." As soon as these words were spoken, all the guests in the venue turned their gaze toward our family. My parents' faces immediately fell. After Lee Yi-hui made that phone call the other day, his family stopped pestering us. My parents thought they had finally given up. which is why they came today to offer their congratulations, out of respect for our family's past relationship. Little did they expect Mr. Lee to pull a stunt like this. Lee Yihui then walked over to me, produced a ring, and knelt down on one knee. Tang Tang, we've known each other since we were kids, all this time. I've never once imagined marrying anyone but you. I always said I would marry you. Now, I'm here to make good on that promise. Marry me, Tang Tang. A look of nervousness crossed Mr. Lee's face. The guests were also waiting for my response. It was no secret that the Lee family was on the brink of bankruptcy, but before I refused the marriage proposal, word had already spread about the impending union between our two families. Everyone was thinking that if the Lee family could latch onto the Yi family, that towering tree, it wasn't impossible for them to make a comeback, or even rise to greater heights, so there was no harm in showing the Lee family a little goodwill. That's why so many people showed up at Mr. and Mrs. Lee's anniversary party today. They're all just testing the waters. I looked at the smug glint in Lee Yihui's eyes and smiled. He mistook it for me backing down and started to say, Tang Tang, what is that? Isn't that young Master Lee? And who is that woman with him, in the middle of the street? This is just two. Lee Yihui was stunned. He, along with his father and mother, simultaneously looked toward the large screen on the stage. His face instantly turned ashen. The large screen, which had been displaying photos and videos celebrating the decades-long love between Mr. and Mrs. Lee, was now shockingly playing a video of Lee Yihui and Xu Qingyu kissing passionately on the street. Mr. and Mrs. Lee reacted quickly, furiously ordering someone to pull the plug on the screen. But it was too late. All the guests were already watching the Lee family's humiliation. Looks like the hacker I hired is pretty good. I'm very pleased. Lee Yihui's face contorted, and he suddenly shouted, Tang Tang, I've been determined since childhood to marry no one but you. I thought you felt the same way. I never imagined people's hearts could change so easily. But if you don't like me, you could have just said so. Why fabricate a fake video to slander my character like this? I slowly raised my phone and turned on the speakerphone. Playing hard to get really doesn't suit you. Yi Tang, I'll say it again. Take the out I'm giving you. Otherwise, you should know you're not the only option for me. Those were the two sentences Lee Yihui had just spoken. I produced the portable speaker I had prepared in advance and addressed the crowd. I'd like to make something clear here. Mr. Lee Yihui and I are merely acquaintances. I had no prior knowledge of today's marriage proposal. I am both shocked and deeply disappointed by Uncle Lee's actions. I glanced at my parents and, after receiving their nod of approval, continued, therefore, on behalf of my parents, I hereby announce that the Yi family will cease all future cooperation with the Lee family. The faces of the three Lee family members turned from livid to ashen pale, gradually twisting into expressions of bitter resentment, and of course, that resentment was directed squarely at me. Mr. Lee forced a smile and said, Tang Tang, I was too hasty today and upset you. That was my fault, since you used to follow Yihui around all the time. I misunderstood and thought today would be a good chance to bring you two together, but you can't just say things like that. The partnership between our families isn't something you can just call off on a whim. Right, old Yi? He looked toward my father, his eyes pleading. My father, however, took the megaphone from my hand and said bluntly, Tang Tang said exactly what she meant. Besides, she's still young. Her mother and I are in no rush to marry her off, and even if we were, we certainly wouldn't send her into a household full of people scheming against her. By then, the bodyguards waiting outside had already received my signal and rushed into the villa's banquet hall. Under the escort of bodyguards, we left the Lee family villa. That night, I received countless messages. All from Lee Yihui. He called me vicious and mean-spirited, accusing me of trying to destroy his family with such methods. He also said I could never compare to Xu Qingyu's gentleness and thoughtfulness, thanked me for not marrying him, and declared he would be with Xu Qingyu. In the end, he said that a selfish, petty person like me would never find true love. I read it, laughed, then deleted everything and blocked him on all platforms. After that day, the business owners who had been on the fence either announced they would cease cooperation with the Lee family or simply turned Mr. Lee away when he came seeking partnerships. Furious, Mr. Li kicked Li Yihue out of the house and disowned him. Then, Li Yihue truly vanished without a trace. Rumor has it he eloped with Xu Qingyu. With that, the Li family was undoubtedly beyond saving and soon went bankrupt. Before the bankruptcy, old Mr. Li came to our home and our company, kneeling to beg my father, appealing to their past friendship to save the Li family business. In my previous life, because of my desperate pleas, my parents used the majority of our funds to bail out the Li family. This caused the Yi family business to miss a crucial development opportunity and never recover. In this life, I didn't make the same foolish mistake again, so my parents naturally and without hesitation turned down Mr. Li's request. After Mr. and Mrs. Li went bankrupt, they left the city. Meanwhile, I continued learning from my father, gradually established myself within the company, and took on a key position. A year later, I happened to meet my current boyfriend, Fu Sheng, through a business connection. I thought he was just striking out on his own. Turns out, he's the second son of the Fu family from the Beijing elite circle, not wanting to join the family business and eager to prove himself. He went solo and has been remarkably successful. After another 6 months together, we decided to tie the knot. News of the marriage alliance between the Fu and Yi families spread, causing a huge uproar online. The topic stayed at the top of the trending list for a full week. Our married life was so blissful that I gradually let go of memories from my past life and the first 2 decades of this one. That was, until I saw Li Yihue at the entrance of my office building. He was a completely different person. At first, I didn't even recognize him. Then, the disheveled, haggard-looking middle-aged man gave me a toothy grin. Tang Tang, long time no see. I stumbled back 3 steps in fright, exclaiming, "Who the hell are you? What's wrong with the security in this complex? They just let anyone wander in." His face was etched with urgency. "It's me, Li Yihue." I was taken aback. Li Yihue might have been a scumbag, but his looks were decent enough. Otherwise, in my previous life, I wouldn't have fallen for his tricks in the first place. But who would have thought that in less than 2.5 years, he'd turn into this pudgy, greasy mess? When I didn't respond, he took a step forward. "Tang Tang, I was wrong. Please, you have to help me. I came back to find my parents, but they're gone." "And what about our family company? Why is it that when I went to the office building, it had already been sold to someone else?" I stared at the person before me, utterly bewildered. In my past life, he seized the opportunity of our marriage to swallow up my family's business. Despicable. But you have to admit he was cunning. Did eloping in this lifetime somehow make you lose your mind? But I had no obligation to comfort him. I just said coldly, "After you eloped with Xu Qingyu, the Li family went bankrupt. Your parents left the city, and I have no idea where they went." His face was full of disbelief. "Uncle, you didn't help my family. Weren't our families good friends? You didn't even beg your parents." "Oh, he hasn't lost his mind. He's just being calculating. He probably thinks I'm still in love with him, that I'll eventually beg my parents to bail out the Li family. He's just waiting for his own parents to finally relent, accept him and Xu Qingyu, so he can waltz back home and resume his life as the pampered young master." I sneered. "What kind of pipe dream are you living in? What makes you think my family would go to such ruinous lengths to save yours? Just because your family tried to swindle mine?" Li Yihue was momentarily speechless. "You can't just stand by and watch us drown." He finally sputtered. "Forget it, let's not talk about that. I'm back now. Let's get married." After being with Xu Qingyu, I realized she doesn't hold a candle to you. She's lazy, indulgent, and does nothing but spend money. I regret it. Give me another chance. I know you still love me, don't you? I smiled and raised my left hand to show him the ring on my ring finger. "I got married over half a year ago. Thank you very much." Li Yihue gave an ugly smile. "Impossible. You loved me so much. How could you get married in such a short time? You're just saying that to get back at me, right?" I was baffled. "Don't you go online? Haven't you seen the news? You don't know about the Fuyi marriage alliance?" He repeated blankly, "The Fuyi marriage alliance." The next second, he was laughing and crying hysterically, "That bitch Xu Qingyu has ruined me." Just then, The security guards from the complex arrived and escorted him out, and he was still shouting that he'd be back, frowning. I contacted the head of the park's security department and instructed them to never let that man in again. As I was driving out of the main gate, another car was just starting up, so I waited for a moment. That's when I happened to see Lee Ihue and a disheveled woman fighting on the side of the road. Lee Ihue, you really did come to see her. Have you no conscience? I'm carrying your child. Get out. If it weren't for you, that wretched woman, making me pick you up and causing my car accident, how could I have missed Yi Tang's wedding? If I hadn't missed her wedding, I'd be the one marrying her today. No wonder you wouldn't let me go online back then. Phut, look at yourself. Do you really think Yi Tang would ever look twice at you? And your family's bankrupt. How could you possibly be worthy of Miss Yi? I'm not worthy, and it's all your fault. If you hadn't seduced me, I never would have given up on Yi Tang. My family's bankruptcy is on you too. That woman was Xu Qing. Being physically stronger, Lee Ihue quickly gained the upper hand and knocked Xu Qingyu to the ground. Still not satisfied, he went over and kicked her several times. And soon blood was seen pooling beneath Xu Qingyu. Witnessing this, someone from another car couldn't stand by and rushed over to intervene. I also dialed 110, the emergency number. As the police were taking Lee Ihue away, he spotted me and shouted, "Tang Tang, I remember everything now. It was my fault. I wronged you in our past life, but I know I was wrong and I regret it. Please forgive me. Let's make this life a good one together." After I went home and told Fu Sheng and my parents, they all agreed that to prevent Lee Ihue and Xu Qingyu from harassing or even harming me, I needed to have a bodyguard assigned to me. Even though I thought it was a hassle, I agreed, considering it's better to be safe than sorry. But the bodyguard turned out to be unnecessary, because Xu Qingyu took care of Lee Ihue. As soon as Xu Qingyu's health had improved slightly, she signed a letter of understanding to bail Lee Ihue out. However, she then took advantage of Lee Ihue being sound asleep to slit his throat and mutilate his lower body beyond recognition. After completing this, she turned on the gas and took her own life. In her suicide note, she stated that those kicks from Lee Ihue had not only caused her to miscarry but had also left her permanently unable to conceive, recalling those 2 years they ran away together. After Lee Ihue spent all his money, he relied on her to support him. In the end, he even planned to abandon her and come find me. Utterly desperate, she was driven to thoughts of murder. After Lee Ihue was cremated, 2 elderly people went to collect his ashes. What happened after that, I don't know, nor do I have any interest in finding out. Because I have already moved on to my own bright and brilliant new life. Now, let's move on to the next story. I'm actually on very good terms with my husband's first love. How good, you ask? Well, when she had a child out of wedlock. I took her into my own home and personally cared for her throughout the entire traditional 40-day postpartum confinement period. My husband praised me for being kind-hearted, and my mother-in-law commended me for being sensible. Everyone was quite pleased. I was also very satisfied when I threw the evidence of my husband's affair with his white Moonlight in his face and made him leave with nothing. Oh, that's right, on the day we got our divorce certificates. I gave him his azoospermia test results as a parting gift. I hope he liked it when he got home and saw it. My husband and I met through a matchmaker. We'd only seen each other twice before we got married. We got our marriage license and tied the knot without any real emotional foundation. The reason I acted so impulsively was because my boyfriend of 9 years unilaterally broke up with me. His reason was that we were incompatible. 9 years together, from age 22 to 31, and it all ends with a single line about incompatibility. To hell with this so-called love. Life didn't give me much time to lick my wounds. When my parents heard I got dumped, their first instinct wasn't to help me condemn that scumbag ex, but to start setting me up on blind dates. In their words, love is just an empty illusion. I'm not getting any younger. If I keep dragging my feet, I'll be past my prime, even if someone would have me then. Having a baby would make me an older mother, which is very risky. Marriage is about building a life together. Finding someone decent, reliable, and stable to share that life with is what truly matters. At that time, my heart was numb, so I just went along with my parents' arrangement. My husband was my very first blind date. For our first meeting, we met at a cafe. After sitting down and talking for a while, we discovered our interests and hobbies aligned perfectly. I'm a huge movie buff. And so is he. He also gives high praise to the movies I love. I'm not really a coffee person. I prefer tea. Same here. He can even discuss different tea varieties with me. I love spicy food, and what a coincidence. He can't live without it either. We had a great conversation that day, and before parting ways, we made plans for a second date to catch the new sci-fi blockbuster. After the movie on our second date, while he was driving me home, he asked if I had any thoughts about marrying him. I remember when he asked me that, my first instinct wasn't shyness or hesitation, it was thinking about that jerk of an ex-boyfriend. I thought to myself, defiantly, that while he broke up with me saying we were incompatible, this blind date right here actually shares my interests, hobbies, and personality. See, you didn't want me, but someone else does, and their prospects are even better than yours, so I said yes. Looking back on the 3 years of marriage with him, I've been personally content. Life was pretty uneventful, and my only regret was probably my inability to get pregnant. A year into our marriage, I still wasn't showing any signs of pregnancy, and both sets of parents were pushing us to have a child. My mother-in-law suggested we go for a medical checkup. On the day of the appointment, my husband's company needed him to go on a last-minute business trip, so I ended up going for the checkup first. My mother-in-law came with me to get the report that day, and she was there when I saw the doctor. After hearing the doctor say I had POS and that my chances of getting pregnant were lower, my mother-in-law has been resentful towards me ever since. Thankfully, my husband has been very supportive. After learning about my condition, he told my mother-in-law that having children should be left to fate. If I can't get pregnant, then being child-free is fine too. Anyway, we both have high incomes, and will have a substantial nest egg for retirement. So we don't need to worry about our old age. When I heard him say those things, I was genuinely touched. Because of that, I even made a real effort to have a child for a while. I had to drink bowl after bowl of that bitter, stomach-churning herbal medicine every single day. My job was insanely busy. Yet I still had to constantly take time off to go to the hospital. This dragged on right into the critical period of my career advancement. Back then, I was pulling overtime every day and simply couldn't carve out any time for hospital visits. The whole plan of getting my body ready for a child just quietly fizzled out. After that, my husband never brought the subject up with me again. It wasn't until recently that I noticed he'd been secretly reading up on parenting tips, and his online shopping cart was filling up with baby products. Whenever we see a cute kid on the street, he can't help but stare a little longer, breaking into a goofy, fatherly grin. He started quitting smoking, working out, and paying more attention to his appearance. He's leaving earlier and coming home later than before, and traveling for work more frequently. All the signs point to him being up to something. He wasn't very clever about it. His story was full of holes. But I kept my cool and didn't press him for details. Asking about something without proof will only tip them off. 3 years of marriage introduced us to each other's friends. I get along quite well with his friends' wives, and we've agreed to meet up once a month to stay connected. It's the weekend today, which is when we plan to get together. We all went to the hot spring village together, rented a villa, and planned to stay for a day and a night. We're both the type who like to arrive early for meetups, and this time was no different. We were the first couple to arrive. The villa has 5 bedrooms in total. There were 4 couples for the gathering. We were the only couple without kids, while the other 3 all brought their children along. We left our luggage in the living room, deciding to assign the rooms once everyone else had arrived. We still had a barbecue planned for today. The villa's butler had already placed the ingredients we ordered in the refrigerator. I took the ingredients out to prep them, while he went outside to the small courtyard to set up the grill and light the charcoal. We divided the work and each got busy with our own tasks. The other 3 couples arrived together. I stepped out of the kitchen and watched them file in through the door, chatting and laughing. The villa instantly came alive with a lively buzz. As the last couple entered, I noticed them glance back over their shoulders, their posture suggesting they were still mid-conversation with someone. Everyone's here now. Did they invite more people at the last minute? I didn't have to wait long to find out. A woman who looked somewhat familiar to me walked in last, entering with a beaming smile. Her smile faltered for a moment when she saw me, then returned to normal. Just then, someone spoke up. "Yilin, let me introduce you. This stunning beauty is our high school classmate Jarong. She just returned to the country not long ago and even joined Old Shin's company. She's been feeling a bit down lately, so we thought she could join our high school gathering to lift her spirits. You don't mind, do you?" The speaker was Hwang Bayan. The Old Shin he mentioned is my husband, Shin Mu. These friends of my husband's are all his high school classmates. He introduced Jarong so openly and without pretense, so I responded with a smile to welcome her arrival. As for whether I mind this sort of thing, if they had cared, they wouldn't have neglected to even give me a heads up beforehand. But then it occurred to me why she looked familiar. I saw her in Shin Mu's high school graduation photo. They were standing very close together in it. Hwang Bayan, don't call me a great beauty in front of my sister-in-law. She's much prettier than I am. You're making me feel awkward. Jarong then looked at me with a sweet, apologetic expression and said, "Sister-in-law, he was just joking. Please don't take it to heart." Okay, take it to heart again. Why do they all think I'd be bothered by such a trivial thing? It's just one more person. If we're talking about who's bothered, I think Hwang Bayan's wife is the one who really minds. The way she looks at Jarong is practically murderous. Bothered by what? Honey, is someone giving you a hard time? Shin Mu had drawn near without me noticing. He wrapped an arm around my shoulder affectionately and pulled me close. "With you backing her up, who would dare bully your wife? Squad leader, you can't go accusing us like that." Before I could even say a word, Jarong retorted with a look of defiance, instantly drawing Shin Mu's attention. Shin Mu's smile deepened, even taking on a hint of fondness, a side of him I'd never seen before. "You're bold enough to do anything, aren't you? Just remember, my wife's the head chef today. Don't you dare run her off, or you'll be the one cooking for everyone." Shin Mu was speaking up for me, but his gaze was glued to Jarong. Jarong raised her fist, pretending to hit Shin Mu. "That's too much. Class president, are you saying my sister-in-law is stingy? Honey, that's absolutely not what I meant. Don't listen to this crazy girl trying to drive a wedge between us." Shin Mu played along with Jarong and shifted the focus of the conversation onto me. My gaze was calm, my expression composed, as I very understandingly shook my head in agreement. "Don't I know you by now?" I retorted to Shin Mu, then changed the subject. "Since everyone's here, let's start by assigning rooms. The villa has 3 floors in total. The first floor has a living room and kitchen. The second floor has 3 bedrooms, and the third floor has 2. In the end, the 3 rooms on the second floor were given to the 3 families with children, so my husband and I, along with Jarong, took a room on the 3rd floor. For this gathering, Shin Mu and I only brought one 20-inch suitcase, while Jarong alone brought a 27-inch one. The villa didn't have an elevator, only stairs. Just as we were about to go upstairs, Shin Mu saw Jarong struggling with that 27-inch suitcase. He wanted to help but hesitated because I was there, glancing at me. The understanding we've built over 3 years of marriage let me read his expression instantly. I graciously obliged my husband's request. "Honey, why don't you go help her carry that?" Shin Mu was waiting for me to say just that. The moment I finished speaking, he eagerly went over to Jarong's side. "What have you got in here? It's so heavy." Shin Mu lifted the suitcase and found it was quite heavy. He looked at Jarong curiously. "Just some toys for the kids. And gifts for you guys. I spent a long time picking them out," Jarong said in a sweet, almost coquettish tone, then turned to me. "Sis, I brought a gift for you this time too. I'll give it to you in a bit. I hope you'll like it." I smiled sweetly and nodded sincerely. "I'll love any gift you give me." "Oh, sis, you really shouldn't have." Jarong smiled even more sweetly, with an utterly harmless and gentle expression, but I had a feeling her smile hid a dagger. Shin Mu walked at the very front, carrying her suitcase. I was in the middle, and she trailed 2 steps behind me, bringing up the rear. Seeing the 20-inch suitcase in my hand, she eagerly offered to carry it for me. She grabbed my suitcase and whispered, "Sis, the squad leader helped me with my luggage. Yours is smaller. I can manage it. Let me carry it for you." Of course, I wasn't going to let Jarong help. "No need," I said. It's just a few sets of clothes for me and my husband, it's not heavy. Jarong wasn't giving up. She made a move to pull the suitcase, and her sudden tug nearly made me lose my balance on the stairs. I only avoided falling by quickly grabbing the handrail. That got me a little annoyed. I was just about to say something to her when Jarong let go of the suitcase she'd been clinging to, let out a startled cry, and stumbled backward down a few steps. I was still processing her little act when Shunmu reacted dramatically. He shouted Jarong's name from upstairs and bolted down 3 flights of stairs in a few quick strides, rushing to her side. Only after confirming Jarong was merely shaken up and unhurt did some color return to Shunmu's face, which had gone pale with fright, though, looking at their position, they were practically in each other's arms, and it didn't end there. Shunmu immediately turned his ire on me. Yilin, what's going on? How could you push someone? I felt so wronged. My eyes instantly welled up with tears, and I looked at them on the verge of crying. Honey, you're being so unfair, don't you trust my character? How could I possibly push someone? She just wanted to help me with my suitcase. I told her not to. She tried to take it anyway, lost her balance, and nearly fell. And honey, I almost fell too just now. Why are you only concerned about her? Anyone would think she's your wife. Who doesn't know how to play the innocent card? Besides, I have a mouth and I'm not a 3-year-old. Of course I can explain what happened clearly. After hearing me out, Shunmu finally realized not only that he had wronged me, but also that he was standing far too close to Jarong in an overly intimate manner. He hurried back to my side and looked at me with concern. Honey, are you hurt from the fall? I sneered inwardly. Oh, so it's Yilin when you're angry. But honey, when you're feeling guilty. Sis, I'm really sorry. If I hadn't tried to grab the suitcase from you, we wouldn't have almost fallen. Please don't be mad at the squad leader, okay? He was so concerned about me just now, but that's only because our class monitor has always treated me like a little sister. Jarong, being more considerate than I am, once again spoke up before I could. Her peace-loving, self-sacrificing demeanor made my heart ache for her understanding and maturity. Indeed, Shunmu felt the same way I did. The look in his eyes as he watched Jarong was full of tenderness. What a good brother he is. They've already apologized. If I keep harping on it, I'll just look petty. I'm going to take the enemy's path, leaving them with nowhere to go. I took Jarong's hand with exaggerated warmth and said, in an even more understanding tone than hers, it's not really your fault. If I'd known you were so insistent on helping, I wouldn't have tried to take over. If I hadn't, none of this would have happened. Right, I went off script, catching Jarong completely off guard. On top of that, with what I said, she couldn't tell if it was an innocent remark or if I was hinting at something. It wasn't just Jarong. Shunmu also wore a look of panic. The two of them exchanged a hurried glance before quickly looking away, pretending not to have noticed. I asked again, don't you think I'm right? Jarong's expression was barely holding together. She nodded with a stiff smile and stammered out a reply. Why yeah, right, that's what I thought. Next time, don't just snatch things. If you want something, just tell me. Since you're Shunmu's recognized little sister, I'll let you have it. It's only fair, since you call me sister-in-law. With that, I handed the suitcase to her. Since you insist on helping, I'll trouble you with it this time. No trouble at all. Jarong reluctantly took the suitcase, her smile growing increasingly strained, yet she had no choice but to accept it. Shunmu was about to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I linked my arm with his and said, honey, come help me in the kitchen. There's too much to prepare, and I'm too slow by myself. With that, I simply pulled Shunmu along, leaving him no opportunity to refuse. I thought after the luggage incident, Jarong would realize she shouldn't mess with me and would back off a little. Who would have thought she'd be so resilient, like a cockroach you just can't kill? The men were busy drinking and chatting, while the women were busy looking after the kids and feeding them. As for Jarong and me, we neither drank nor had kids to look after, so we ended up as a little duo on our own. The difference was, I was on grill duty today. I sat by the barbecue, grilling and eating. And whenever there was too much, I'd just call others over to take it away. It was a pretty leisurely gig. Jarong had been trying to help with the kids, but she couldn't soothe the 1-year-old baby, nor could she handle the 5-year-old. Every child seemed to reject her. which made her terribly awkward. In the end, she shifted her focus to me. "Sis, let me help you with the grilling. I'm actually a pretty decent cook." Jarung was practically volunteering on the spot. Eager to do something, I had no reason to turn her down. Besides, I was already full, so I simply gave up my spot to her. "Alright then, you can grill the oysters. Start by laying them out on the grill." I pointed to a large crate of plump, meaty oysters beside us. These things are fuel for a man's engine. When Jarung saw the crate of oysters, her smile stiffened for a moment again, though I couldn't guess what she was thinking of, but under my watchful eye, she still picked up the oysters and placed them on the grill, while I stood by to top them with garlic sauce. They were working together just fine at first, but when Jarung was placing the fifth one, she let out a gagging sound. That sound seemed to flip a switch, and Jarung proceeded to gag several more times in quick succession. The noise and commotion were so loud that the men who had been chatting and drinking stopped their conversation and all turned to look, and, as was no surprise, Shunmu was the first one to react. Shunmu smoothly poured a glass of soda water for Jarung and handed it to her, stopping just short of feeding her himself, with equal familiarity. Jarung cupped Shunmu's hand, holding the glass with both of hers, taking small, delicate sips. I watched in silence from the side, my expression so calm it was as if their behavior was the most natural thing in the world. The others didn't share my steely composure. Aside from the children too young to understand adult subtleties, the other onlookers wore complicated expressions. Take Shu Minute, Huang Bian's wife, who detests Jarung the most, as an example. The sheer disgust in her eyes when she looked at Jarung was almost palpable. As if championing my cause, she said with dripping sarcasm, "Old Shun, I know you and Jarung have a sibling-like bond, but even siblings need to mind their boundaries. Yilin is right here watching. Aren't you afraid she'll get the wrong idea?" Shu Min's words jolted Shunmu awake. He hastily shoved the cup into Jarung's hand, making her hold it herself. Then, with a look of pure guilt, he glanced over at me, once again. Before I could even get a word out, Jarung cut in. "Sis, I'm sorry. Please don't misunderstand my relationship with the class monitor. I've just been having some stomach issues lately, and has only been looking out for me because he saw I was feeling unwell." I nodded after listening, showing my understanding. "I know your relationship with Shunmu is purely like siblings. As an older brother, it's only right for him to take extra care of his younger sister." My words were so unexpected that everyone looked a bit stunned, clearly finding it hard to believe I could be so easily fooled. "What a shame your stomach's acting up. I guess the smell of seafood doesn't agree with you. I'll handle the grilling myself. You go take a break," I said with genuine regret. Truly sorry to lose an extra pair of hands. Feeling a bit guilty, Shunmu offered to help me with the barbecue. I happily agreed and let him have all the first 2 batches of freshly grilled oysters. About 30 in total. I grilled him some shrimp, kidneys, and chives, all known for their aphrodisiac properties, and made sure he ate every last bite. In the end, he was so stuffed he begged me to stop, and I reluctantly called it quits. I'd been sitting by the grill all evening and reeked of barbecue smoke, so I told Shunmu I was going for a soak in the hot springs. The effects of that food were already kicking in. He was pretty tipsy, his eyes glazed over, and he wrapped an arm around my waist, insisting on joining me at the hot springs. Jarung, standing nearby, grew anxious and said, "Class monitor, you shouldn't go in the hot springs after drinking." "That's right, honey. You go back to the room and wait for me. I'll head straight back after my soak." I patted Shunmu on the head as I spoke, much like patting a dog. I deliberately killed over an hour at the hot spring. By the time I returned to the room, Shunmu was mostly sober, fresh out of the shower. He was waiting for me in bed. His gaze was full of desire, a restless energy leaving him wanting. The moment I lay down, he pulled me into an embrace. I pushed him away, yawning. "Don't start. I'm exhausted from today. No funny business tonight. I have to get up early tomorrow. Honey, what about me? Just once, please, just once." Shunmu clung to me, nuzzling his head into the crook of my neck and planting a kiss on my earlobe. I pushed him away again, pulled the covers over myself and turned my back to him. "Take care of it yourself," I said impatiently. "I'm exhausted. Don't bother me." After saying that, I wasn't the least bit worried Shenmue would force me. In that regard, he's always been excessively gentlemanly. As long as I made it clear I wasn't willing, he'd rather burst than disregard my feelings. I heard him get up and walk to the bathroom, followed by the sound of running water. After a while, he emerged from the bathroom, walked over to me, and softly called my name twice. I didn't respond. Once he was sure I was asleep, he went out onto the balcony. The 2 rooms on the 3rd floor were designed with a shared balcony, providing direct access from one to the other, including Jiorong's room. I opened my eyes, wide awake, and listened to the sounds of Shenmue crossing the balcony and entering Jiorong's room. I got out of bed, picked up my phone, and activated the camera. Moving barefoot without a sound, I approached the balcony outside Jiorong's room. Through a gap in the loosely drawn curtains, I saw Shenmue on the bed, pinning Jiorong beneath him. The moment my suspicions were confirmed, I still found it incredibly difficult to face it with composure. Ever since I first suspected Shenmue might be cheating, I had been imagining how I would calmly gather evidence and stoically accept the truth when I saw it with my own eyes. I absolutely must not lose my cool and brawl with that scumbag and his mistress like some hysterical woman, ending up inflicting minor damage at a great cost to myself. But when I saw Shenmue's face, flushed with desire, lost in the rhythm of his movements atop Jiorong, as Jiorong clung to him, stifling her cries and sobbing softly, begging Shenmue to be gentle and not hurt the baby, I felt wave after wave of nausea. It was sickening, utterly revolting. I rushed back to my room, ran into the bathroom, and leaned over the toilet, vomiting until I was dry heaving. The next day, as the gathering was ending and we were preparing to leave, Jiorong took out a bottle of perfume right in front of Shenmue. She said it was a gift for me, and that it was the same scent she was wearing. I accepted the perfume, and right in front of Shenmue, I spritzed it on the inside of my wrist. I lifted my hand to his nose and asked, "Darling, does this smell nice?" Shenmue calmly took my hand, smiled faintly, and said, "It smells lovely," fighting back my disgust. I subtly pulled my hand free from Shenmue's grasp. I turned to Jiorong, whose eyes were filled with jealousy, and said to her gratefully, "Thank you for the perfume. My husband really likes it." Once I'd finished speaking, I had no desire to waste any more time on Jiorong. I urged Shenmue to get in the car so we could leave. I saw Jiorong standing outside the car, her mouth opening as if to speak. Shenmue shook his head at her, and she reluctantly closed her mouth, watching us drive away. On the way back, I glanced at my phone and lied to him, saying there was an issue at the hotel and that he could just drop me off there. I'm the director of marketing and sales at the headquarters of a 5-star hotel chain group. Being busy is just the norm for me. Shenmue didn't question my excuse. He dropped me off at the hotel and then left. I, on the other hand, got into another car and headed straight for a law firm. I knew perfectly well that Shenmue would never agree to a divorce unless I was the one to initiate it. He quit his job just a year after we got married and started his own wedding planning business. At the time, I had some savings, out of trust. I kept only a small portion for myself and gave him the rest as seed money to start the company. In return, he gave me shares in the business. His company's stable growth isn't just down to his own abilities. I've played a significant part in it. I leveraged my position at the company to switch the hotel's partnership with the wedding planner to Shenmue's firm. The contract from the hotel I work at alone accounts for half of Shenmue's company's annual revenue. As long as I'm still useful to him and hold shares in his company, he wouldn't dare bring up divorce. The reason I consulted a lawyer was to have Shenmue leave the marriage with nothing. Unfortunately, the lawyer informed me that the law has no provision for making an unfaithful spouse forfeit all assets in a divorce. Furthermore, discovering infidelity only once or twice doesn't guarantee an immediate divorce. The court often gives the offending party a chance to reform. I was extremely dissatisfied with this. My lawyer advised me to gather more evidence of Shenmue's infidelity. That way, when I file for divorce, we can get it over with quickly. He also told me to get a clear picture of Shenmue's financial situation and watch out for any attempts to hide assets. This will put me in a stronger position when it comes to dividing property. What a hassle. Ever since I saw that disgusting scene last night, I can't stand to be around Shunmu for another second. Who would have thought getting a divorce could be such a hassle? I left the law firm and stepped out of the building right at noon, under a blazing sun. My ride-hail hadn't arrived yet, the sun was scorching, so I took shelter in the shade behind a pillar. A luxury car worth 8 figures pulled into the spot next to me. I was standing in a concealed spot, so the people in the car didn't notice me. Through the half-open car window, I saw Jarong, along with a middle-aged man around 50. Slightly overweight and ordinary-looking. In the back seat, Jarong was being held by this middle-aged man. She was fawningly kissing him, and he, pleased by her flattery, handed her a card. Watching Jarong's intimate gestures with that middle-aged man, a plan suddenly formed in my mind. After returning home, I announced my decision to pursue IVF treatment in front of my mother-in-law and Shunmu. I watched their reactions. Both were taken aback for a moment, then exchanged a glance. Their subsequent responses, however, were quite different. My mother-in-law was thrilled. She praised me repeatedly for finally coming to my senses, insisting that a woman's duty is to bear children and that only then can she be considered complete. Shunmu's brow furrowed briefly before smoothing out again. He looked at me gently, the picture of a caring and understanding husband, and asked if my mother-in-law had been putting too much pressure on me lately, forcing me into this difficult decision. After all, I had been strongly against IVF before, knowing the significant physical and emotional toll it takes. Upon hearing Shunmu's pointed remark, my mother-in-law's face immediately fell, making her displeasure perfectly clear to us. I could see she was about to launch into another one of her dramatic, wailing performances, saying that the pressure she put on me was all for the sake of the Shun family having descendants to carry on the lineage, and that she didn't want to face the ancestors in the afterlife with shame. I didn't like hearing her talk like that, so I quickly said that I actually wanted to have a child myself. Seeing everyone else with kids, I was genuinely a bit envious. Now that my career is stable, I'd like to have one. Besides, my mother-in-law is still in good health and could help us take care of the child in the future. Hearing me say this, my mother-in-law nodded repeatedly in agreement, and Shunmu was left speechless. So, to continue, I have a friend whose family runs a private hospital. The service and facilities there are on par with top-tier public hospitals. Their OBGYN department is quite renowned, and they have a high success rate with IVF procedures. I've decided to go there. Shunmu had no objections, or perhaps more accurately, he didn't dare to object. I went ahead and scheduled the checkup for the very next day. Early that morning, Shunmu told me his company had called an impromptu meeting, which might cause some delay. Under normal circumstances, hearing him say that, I would have considerately rescheduled, or, just like before, I could go and get the checkup done by myself first. But this time, I went to the company with him and suggested he could finish up his work first, then accompany me to the hospital. It also happened that I wanted to get an understanding of the company's recent business situation. Because I insisted, Shunmu had no choice but to take me along to the company. That's when I noticed the employees at Shunmu's company were giving me some rather knowing looks. Jarong's position at the company was Shunmu's secretary, and her desk was located right inside his office. Shunmu also had another secretary I was familiar with, Li Lujing, whom he had poached from his old firm. She used to be a member of his team and was now his secretary. Li Lujing's setup was quite different from Jarong's. Instead of sharing a spacious 30-square-meter office with the boss, she was tucked away in a 5-square-meter cubicle right next to it. The blatant favoritism was impossible to miss. Anyone with eyes could see how differently Shunmu treated these two assistants. When I arrived, Jarong visibly panicked. She quickly maneuvered her way out from behind her desk, which was cluttered with snacks. I settled onto the sofa, casting a glance at the imported snacks on her desk, guilt written all over her face. She rushed to explain, "Sis, Mr. Shun has a lot of meetings. These are just for entertaining guests." At the office, Jarong knew her place and didn't call me class monitor. In front of me, "Oh Tilda," I drew out the sound and nodded. Jarong quickly changed the subject. "Sis, what would you like to drink? How about some coffee? I make a pretty decent cup." I shook my head and said to Jarong with a smile, No, thanks, I'm heading to the hospital with my husband for a checkup later. I'll take a rain check on the coffee. Jarong asked me curiously. Sis, what kind of checkup are you and Mr. Shin going to the hospital for? Are you feeling unwell? No. It's because I haven't been able to get pregnant, so we've decided to try IVF. We're going for the initial tests today. If all goes well, I might be a mom by next year. I said it openly, patting my stomach with an expression full of anticipation for the happy future picture of our family of 3. Jarong's smile completely vanished, her face turned ashen, and she stiffly excused herself, saying she was going to get me some water. Before walking out of the office, I wiped the smile off my face, let out a cold snort, stood up, and walked out to the office next door where Li Lujing worked, before coming to the company. I was genuinely worried I wouldn't be able to win Li Lujing over. Now, seeing Li Lujing crammed into this tiny cubicle overflowing with documents, I felt even more confident about my next move. Li Lujing and I are cut from the same cloth, both ambitious women in the corporate world. When Shun Mu recruited her to the company, he told her she would start as a secretary, and once she was capable of handling things on her own, she would be given a manager's position. Now, 2 years have passed, and the company has grown, but Li Lujing is still just a secretary. What's even more frustrating is that now there's also Jarong. They're both secretaries, earning the same salary, yet one does practically no work while the other is run ragged. Putting myself in her shoes, if I were in that position, I wouldn't feel much loyalty toward a boss like that, and Li Lujing was exactly that way. When I asked if she had considered finding a new boss, Li Lujing was even more direct than I was. She asked me if I had found out about Shun Mu's affair with Jarong and was planning to divorce him and take a share of the company. I told her I didn't want Shun Mu's company itself. I wanted her to help me poach its key talent so I could start my own venture. Just like how Shun Mu screwed over his former employer by taking half their core staff, leaving them severely weakened, my goal is to turn Shun Mu's company into an empty shell. It certainly saves time talking to someone clever. More importantly, Li Lujing had probably had enough of Shun Mu and Jarong. She agreed to be my informant without hesitation. Her condition was that she be given the position of vice president in the company once the job was done. There was no time to discuss the details with Li Lujing. When Jarong returned to Shun Mu's office and found I wasn't there, she called me. I lied and said I was in the restroom. I didn't want her to find out I'd contacted Li Elvying. So I rescheduled with her for another time. When I returned to Shun Mu's office, he was there too. He said his meeting was over and he was ready to go. Shun Mu and I left together. Jarong's eyes were red and puffy. Had she been crying? Shun Mu, afraid I'd catch on, blocked my view of Jarong and ushered me out of the office. Thanks to a friend pulling some strings, we were able to skip the line for all the tests at the hospital. So even though there were a lot of items, everything got done very quickly. During the checkups, Shun Mu's phone kept ringing. Whenever he answered, he'd claim it was work-related, deliberately stepping away from me. But seeing the doting look that crept onto his face as he took the call in the corner, it was obvious even to a blind man that Jarong was on the other end. She must have been in one of her moods, needing Shun Mu to soothe her, and he was only too happy to oblige. As soon as the exam was over, Shun Mu couldn't even wait for the results and made an excuse to leave first. Perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. I found my friend and asked her to have the lab expedite the report. My friend, unaware of the situation between Shun Mu and me, just laughed at me for being so impatient. However, after reviewing our reports, she told me that Shun Mu's condition was more serious than my own. My friend pointed to one of Shun Mu's test results and told me he has congenital azoospermia. I have to say, this result took me completely by surprise. So it seems Shun Mu isn't just being cheated on, he's also been played for a fool. It was so absurd, I couldn't help but laugh. In that moment, I didn't feel any hatred for Jarong at all. In fact, I had to admire her. Jarong really pulled that off brilliantly. However, my own plans will need some adjusting now. My original plan was to have my friend alter Shun Mu's medical report to show a diagnosis of azoospermia. That way, he'd believe he could never get a woman pregnant, and he'd go after Jarong. They'd tear each other apart. Ideally, the whole thing blows up, exposing Jarong's other lover in the process. When that happens, Shunmu will have no choice but to get a divorce, whether he wants to or not. As for now, I had my friend alter Shunmu's medical report. Just like before, he's perfectly healthy. The only one with a problem is me. I need at least a year to recuperate and prepare for pregnancy. During this year, I will ensure Jarong's baby is carried to term safely and born healthy. When I got home with the fake test results, Jarong was at my house too. As I walked in, I saw Jarong with red-rimmed eyes, crying. My mother-in-law sat to her left, her face full of grandmotherly concern, while my husband sat to her right, handing her tissues and wiping her tears, his expression full of pity. To an outsider, it would have looked like a picture of domestic harmony. My sudden appearance sent varying degrees of panic across all three of their faces. I didn't play dumb or pretend not to notice their odd behavior. Instead, I fixed Shunmu with a suspicious look and demanded, "What's going on here? Honey, it's not what it looks like. You've got the wrong idea." Shunmu left Jarong's side and hurried over to me, as if afraid I might storm off in a rage, and reached out to pull me into a hug. "Don't touch me." The thought of him being filthy made me sick. I pushed him away with all my strength, disgusted by his embrace, and continued to confront him. "Then what was it? It looked to me like you were about to hug each other. Are you sure your feelings for her are just brotherly? She even has her desk in your office." I was willing to let that slide. But now she's crossed the threshold into my own home. What's next? Should I just hand over the master bedroom to the two of you as well? Thinking back to how the scorned wives in TV dramas lose their minds confronting the other woman, I stirred up my emotions, making myself look like I was about to explode at any second. My words needed to be biting and sarcastic, sharp enough to really get under Shunmu's skin, just as I expected. The flicker of guilt in Shunmu's eyes was instantly replaced by fury. He even had the audacity to lash out at me indignantly. "Yilin, what on earth are you talking about? My relationship with Jarong is completely innocent. You're insulting me by saying these things." He genuinely seemed furious. With that utterly shameless act, I might have actually believed him if I hadn't seen the intimate footage of him and Jarong. I pointed at Jarong. "I really want to believe you both. But you were practically in each other's arms just now. How am I supposed to believe that? Being singled out like that." Jarong couldn't stay seated any longer. "Sis, you've really got it all wrong. I just went through a breakup. The class monitor was only comforting me. Auntie can vouch for us." Not content with just speaking up herself, Jarong was now dragging my mother-in-law into the fray, catching Jarong's hint. My mother-in-law's eyes darted between the three of us before she gave a firm, decisive nod. "Exactly, Yilin. How can you be so inconsiderate? Jarong just went through a breakup, and here you are getting all jealous over nothing." When my mother-in-law said that, I almost felt like applauding her. She's absolutely the MVP teammate for Shunmu and Jarong, and of course, she'll be my secret weapon too. I put on an act, feigning both hurt and embarrassment. Is that really it? If she's heartbroken, why did she have to come to my house? Jarong has no family or friends in this city. She and Mom have always been close. When she went through that breakup, a guy who's not great with words of comfort, brought her home so Mom could console her. You're just overthinking things. Mom even mentioned wanting to adopt Jarong as a goddaughter before. There's really nothing more than a sibling-like bond between us." Seeing that I had calmed down, Shunmu seized the opportunity to explain his relationship with Jarong in more detail. While others might betray their fathers, he betrays his mother-in-law. He's completely dragged her into this mess. Is he planning to use her as a shield from now on? I can't tell if Shunmu is just incredibly arrogant or downright foolish, or does he think I'm an idiot? That's the only reason he'd dare try to deceive me with such a clumsy lie, or have I shown him too much trust in the past, making him think I'm easy to manipulate? My subsequent performance did not disappoint Shunmu. I wore a look of remorse, genuinely sorry for having misjudged Jarong. I offered Jarong my most sincere and heartfelt apology. In my heart, I was thinking, I'm sorry that I'll have to use you for a long time to come, but I will be grateful for your sacrifice. Right then and there, in front of my mother-in-law and Shunmu, I declared that from then on, Jarong would be like a sister to me as well. She just went through a breakup. I was worried something might happen if she lived alone. Who knows what could go wrong? I made up some excuse on the spot and let Jarong stay with us. The place we're living in now is a newly bought luxury flat with 6 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. We could easily fit 2 more Jarongs in here. The moment I made the suggestion, they were all stunned. They clearly didn't expect me to be so accepting and generous, able to welcome Jarong without any reservations. No one was happier than my mother-in-law. Beaming with joy, she didn't even ask for Jarong's opinion and agreed on her behalf right away. That's wonderful. Yilin, you're always so considerate and thoughtful. Jarong, I wouldn't feel at ease with a young woman like you living alone out there. We have plenty of space. So make yourself at home and stay as long as you like. Consider this your home. Just tell me what you'd like to eat, and I'll make it for you. Jarong was clearly taken aback. But she was in too deep to back out now. Under my earnest gaze, she reluctantly agreed. My smile grew more genuine. Now that Jarong was staying, she might as well stay for good. I took out the traditional Chinese medicine prescribed by the hospital. It's a formula to nourish qi and blood. I told my mother-in-law the doctor prescribed it to help with pregnancy preparation. The medicine was already brewed and portioned into individual bags, which I needed to drink daily. I vowed earnestly that this time, no matter how busy work got, I would dutifully take the medicine for the sake of having a child. Hearing my resolute declaration, my mother-in-law instinctively glanced at Jarong, whose eyes welled up with tears again. Shenmu then helped me put the medicine in the fridge to keep it fresh. He thoughtfully added that I tend to forget things when I'm busy, so he'll make sure to remind me to take it every day. He's already looking forward to the baby's arrival. Shenmu's words made Jarong's eyes redden even more, and tears welled up, threatening to spill. She couldn't hold back her emotions any longer. Clinging to me, she sobbed, "Sis, I really envy the relationship you and the squad leader have. I wish I could be that happy too." That remark really hit home, perfectly capturing her current heartbroken state. I patted her back and said, "You will be, as long as you're brave enough to go after it, you'll find the happiness you want. With me here to pave the way for you. If you want that kind of happiness, it's yours for the taking." After that, Jarong moved in without a hitch. I watched from the sidelines as my mother-in-law meticulously prepared 3 meals a day for Jarong, treating her like a daughter-in-law. They called it taking care of someone going through a breakup. Even I, the actual daughter-in-law, never received such treatment. At first, Jarong was hesitant to accept things because of me, afraid I'd catch on. Over time, she realized I not only didn't mind, but I was practically falling over myself to be her confidant. I gave her gifts, took her out, spoiled her, and indulged her every little whim. For instance, when she complained the bed was too hard, I immediately replaced it with a softer one. She took a liking to my limited edition bag, and I gave it to her without a second thought. She admired my new clothes, and I handed them over without batting an eye. I probably wouldn't even treat my own sister this well, but my charm offensive worked wonders. Jarong is getting more and more carried away. She even had the nerve to cozy up to Shenmu right in front of me at home. While there was nothing explicitly inappropriate, the thick, flirtatious vibe between them was obvious to anyone with eyes. Yet, I pretended to be blind to it, even making excuses to cover for them. For instance, whenever Shenmu and I sat together on the couch watching a show, Jarong would inevitably come over, squeeze me out, and commandeer all of his attention. For instance, when Shenmu bought me a gift, Jarong would sulk and say she wanted the exact same one. Or, if I wore a sexy nightgown to hint at Shenmu, Jarong would inevitably put on a show of heartbreak that night. Needing comfort, for this last point, I have to thank Jarong. Because of her, Shenmu never got another chance to touch me, and I was spared the disgust. In all these situations, no matter how out of line Jarong was, I always made excuses for her. I played the part of a completely trusting wife and sister-in-law, watching their increasingly outrageous behavior with a heart as calm as still water. It wasn't until Jarong's morning sickness became too obvious and her belly started to show that the family could no longer keep it from me, the day I came home. Another dramatic scene was unfolding. Jarong was having an emotional breakdown, Shenmu was furious at her lack of resolve, and my mother-in-law was full of pity and concern. The three of us were each playing our own part in this scene. I played along, my puzzled gaze shifting between them as I asked, "What's going on?" My words acted like a trigger, and Jarong burst into tears. Shenmu pulled me aside and whispered, "Honey, Jarong is pregnant, it's her ex's." "What? She's pregnant?" I raised my voice, unable to hide my shock. Shenmu quickly covered my mouth, signaling for me to keep my voice down. Jarong was in a fragile state, and we shouldn't upset her further. I nodded, and only then did Shenmu release his hand from my mouth, suppressing the urge to wipe my lips. I pressed on with my questions. "What's she going to do about the baby? Get back together with her ex?" "Shenmu, she doesn't want to. She says she'll have the baby and raise it herself, as a single mother." "Me? How can that possibly work? Do you think being a single mother is easy? If she's being foolish, why are you going along with it? If she won't get back with her ex, then she shouldn't keep the baby." "Shenmu, darling, how can you be so cruel? That's a living life. You can't just talk about not keeping it so casually." "Me, I'm cruel? Shenmu, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea how hard it is to be a single mother? She's acting on impulse, as her family. How can we just let her rush into this? She'll regret it later." "Shenmu, you said it yourself. We're family. She has us to help her. If she ever regrets it later, I'll be there to catch her." I was genuinely moved by the depth of Shenmu's sibling bond. Even biological siblings couldn't be more devoted. I sat down with Jarong for a heartfelt talk, speaking from my position as her sister-in-law. Jarong was initially wary of me, but she let her guard down after learning I didn't object to her having the baby. She told me this child was the best gift heaven could have given her. With a child, her life is bound to get better and better from now on. I nodded in agreement beside her. This child is a wonderful gift for me, too. Otherwise, I might still be completely in the dark about Shenmu's deception. Strangely enough, we found common ground on this one point about the child. We were both determined to ensure a safe and smooth birth, worried that my mother-in-law wouldn't be able to take proper care of her. I even hired a live-in nutritionist certified nanny specifically to manage Jarong's daily meals. I also told Jarong to stop going to work, to just stay home and relax. Eat whatever she craves, enjoy herself, and if she wants to buy anything, just put it on Shenmu's card. Jarong accepted my kindness without a second thought, growing closer to me by the day. She became quite clingy, often preferring to sleep beside me at night. Shenmu found himself unceremoniously booted from the master bedroom and relegated to the guest room. I was more than happy to let this arrangement continue, though each of us had our own hidden agenda. Shenmu, for his part, seemed perfectly content with the situation. He would gaze at Jarong's growing belly, his face radiant with paternal pride. He took particular delight in gently touching her stomach to feel the baby's movements. I sometimes tease him for acting like the child's biological father, being so concerned about the baby in Jarong's belly. Whenever I say that, Shenmu gets all flustered, but after I kept joking about it, he grew bolder. He started hinting, when I'd tease him on purpose, that he wanted the child to call him dad someday, that he wanted to be the godfather. More like he wants to be the real dad. If you ask me, our live-in nanny was absolutely stunned by our family's bizarre way of interacting at first. She couldn't even keep a straight face. After seeing it happen so many times, she eventually grew used to it. A while later, I started noticing a look of pity in the nanny's eyes whenever she looked at me. It seems that when I'm not home, Jarong and Shenmu act even more recklessly, letting the nanny witness things she shouldn't have seen. That makes me even more satisfied. I hadn't forgotten about Jarong's other lover. I hired a private investigator to follow her, and she certainly gave me quite a few surprises. The middle-aged man I saw that day was a wine merchant from out of town. He was the one who funded Jarong's study abroad, and has been supporting her all these years. That middle-aged man's wife is a real piece of work. Her methods for dealing with mistresses are far less gentle than mine. Any woman this man has kept, once discovered by his wife, meets a grim fate. The consequences range from disfigurement to permanent disability. Being his mistress is, without a doubt, a high-risk occupation. But the man himself is generous, spending money on women without a second thought. The woman who was harmed by his wife received a large sum of compensation and did not take legal action against them. Among the middle-aged man's many women, Jarung was undoubtedly the smartest, the boldest, and the one who lasted the longest. Out of all the middle-aged man's mistresses, Jarung was the only one who successfully got pregnant, and, believe it or not, Jarung had known this middle-aged man since high school. She was classmates with the middle-aged man's daughter and used that as a cover, which is why she was never discovered. So, in a way, it's quite similar to my current situation. No wonder Jarung was so bold and so easily bought into my easy-to-fool persona. So there was already a victim before me. Jarung and that female classmate were best friends. Since they were high school classmates, she was also acquainted with Shinmu. However, that classmate's relationship with Shinmu and the others was only casual, so they lost touch after starting university. After piecing these connections together, I thought about the methods of the middle-aged man's legal wife. With Jarung's due date just 2 weeks away, I was afraid things could turn fatal. That's why I didn't immediately share this information with the wife. Once my own situation is settled, I'll let someone else deal with Jarung. I have no interest in wasting my time on her. I haven't been idle these past few months. Shunmu's company has suddenly become extremely busy lately. He's been working around the clock and barely comes home. I know exactly why he's so swamped. It's because Li Lujing resigned. With her gone, Shunmu feels like he's lost his right-hand man, and nothing at the company seems to go smoothly for him anymore. None of the staff below can fill Li Lujing's shoes. Training another secretary as capable as her in such a short time is no easy task. I gave Li Lujing a substantial sum of money so she could take a proper vacation and relax for a while. Shunmu tried to lure Li Lujing back with a high salary offer, but he couldn't even track her down. But this is just the beginning. Li Lujing's resignation will, at most, keep Shunmu busy for a spell. It won't impact the company. I don't want the company to be affected either. Otherwise, the company's shares won't be worth much when the time comes. As her due date drew closer, Jarung grew increasingly irritable. To make matters worse, Shunmu was swamped with work during this period. Not daring to vent her frustration on me, she took it all out on my mother-in-law instead. She even went and found some fortune teller who picked an auspicious date and time for the birth, and my mother-in-law actually agreed to it. This so-called auspicious date was a full week earlier than her due date. I arranged for her to give birth at my friend's private hospital. Jarung trusted me completely by then and also felt the service at a private hospital was better than at a public one. She wouldn't have to share a crowded ward with others either. I booked her a VIP suite at the private hospital. Since she wanted comfort, she was naturally happy to have the baby at the private hospital. The baby was delivered by C-section. On the day of the delivery, Shunmu was tied up with work and couldn't make it. I made an excuse about hotel business and didn't go either. In reality, I was waiting for a DNA report in my friend's office at the hospital. Jarung gave birth to a baby girl. When her mother-in-law found out it was a girl, she was bitterly disappointed. She actually left Jarung all alone and went home. On the day she gave birth, Jarung was in the hospital with no loved ones by her side, only a nurse to care for her. This is a development I truly didn't anticipate, but I'm absolutely delighted to see it. After receiving the DNA report for the child and Shunmu, I was even more pleased. That cuckold's hat is now firmly welded onto Shunmu's head, impossible to remove. I didn't make it to Jarung's hospital room until the evening. She had been awake for a while and was taking her frustration out on the nurse for the lack of attention, refusing point-blank to follow the nurse's advice to breastfeed her own daughter. The moment she saw me, Jarung immediately started whimpering and showing off her distress. Right in front of the nurse, she complained about the inadequate service and threatened to file a complaint. The nurse's face flushed with anger. Inadequate service, she thought. What does she think we are, waitstaff? I asked the offended nurse to step out for a moment, then patiently soothed Jarung. It took quite some time before she finally calmed down and drifted back into a drowsy sleep. I glanced at the wrinkled newborn, whose features were still too indistinct to tell who he or she took after more. Just then, Shunmu arrived belatedly, seeing I was the only one in the hospital room. He frowned and asked where his mother had gone. I feigned ignorance and shook my head. I had no intention of getting involved in the matters between him and his mother. Shenmu left with a grim expression to make a call. When he returned, he told me his mother had a bad back and couldn't stay overnight at the hospital for Jiarong, so now it was down to either him or me to stay. What about the live-in nanny? We could offer her more money to come. But Shenmu told me that my mother-in-law had already let the nanny go. I was speechless. It seems my mother-in-law, having not gotten the big, healthy grandson she'd been dreaming of, harbors a lot of resentment towards Jiarong. I never would have guessed my mother-in-law was still so old-fashioned about preferring sons over daughters. Thankfully, I'm about to escape this misery. Well, it can't be helped. I don't want to stay overnight either, so this duty falls to Shenmu, the brand new father. Even though men and women are different, they're brother and sister, it's fine. I'm afraid I have to go through the whole charade. I'm so sorry, but something came up at the hotel, and with a colleague calling in sick, I need to pull a night shift. Shenmu wouldn't object. He'd be thrilled to see me go, so he could finally have his precious daughter all to himself. My mother-in-law doesn't care much for the baby girl, but Shenmu seems absolutely delighted with her. A week later, when Jiarong was discharged from the hospital, I had already arranged a postpartum care center for her. But now, my mother-in-law says it's a waste of money and that she should just recover at home. Jiarong was furious but didn't dare to speak up. As a woman myself, I could empathize with a new mother. Since she wasn't going to a postpartum care center, I hired a new maternity nurse for Jiarong instead. Shenmu was deeply moved by this. He praised my kindness, saying that my love for him extended to his family as well. My mother-in-law must have finally had a pang of conscience. She praised me profusely for being so considerate and sensible, saying that Shenmu was incredibly lucky to have married me. It was a blessing from their ancestors. She promised she'd make sure Shenmu treated me well from then on. I chuckled inwardly, hoping she'd still feel that way in the future. While most new mothers have a month of postpartum care, I hired a confinement nanny for Jiarong for 40 days. I was determined to ensure she recovered fully and built up her strength, so she'd be physically robust enough to weather the coming storm. I began using work as an excuse to come home less, and took up residence in a hotel. On the very day Jiarong finished her postpartum confinement, I had my appointed lawyer go and discuss the divorce with Shenmu. My demands are simple and by the book. I want my fair share of his assets, what I'm legally entitled to. Our marital assets include 3 cars, 2 properties in the suburbs, the large flat we currently live in and a newly purchased villa in the city center, plus 2 commercial shops, along with his company and savings. I want the villa in the city center, the 2 shops, and the car I usually drive. I don't want the other 2 cars. Who knows what disgusting things they might have done in them. As for the company, that goes without saying. Aside from my own shares, I want half of his. The same goes for our savings. Laying out these terms of mine is going to cost Shenmu a fortune. He was unwilling to get a divorce and insisted on seeing me, accompanied by my lawyer. I met with him at the law firm. He had brought his own lawyer as well. In just 2 days, he had lost his former vigor and looked noticeably haggard. When Shenmu saw me, he became agitated and tried to approach, but the lawyer I had hired stepped in front of me. Shenmu, honey, I know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Please don't divorce me. I don't want this to end. I promise I'll be completely devoted to you from now on. I laughed. Shenmu was so naive. Enough talk. If we don't reach a settlement today, I'll file for divorce with the evidence of your infidelity. The court will grant it. I can wait. But I wonder, will you end up having to give me a larger share of the assets, after all? The lawyer I've hired is a renowned specialist in divorce cases. I didn't endure all this time just to get entangled in a messy, drawn-out situation with Shenmu. Shenmu turned pale with anger at the threat in my words. His own lawyer gave his sleeve a tug, urging him to calm down. The lawyer I hired may be expensive, but he's certainly efficient. Shenmu went from outright refusal to signing the divorce papers on the spot. Among the terms I proposed for the asset division, he wanted the shares I held, at his company's current market value. He intended to buy them all out. To do so, he'd have to drain his savings and also liquidate 2 suburban properties to pay me. This turned out to be an unexpected windfall. I never thought he could be so foolish. He was afraid that with me holding shares, I might meddle in his company's management. That's why he went to such extravagant lengths to buy out my stake, but he had no idea, his company was on the brink of collapse. Given how generous he's been, I couldn't bear to let him be deceived any longer. Being the kind soul that I am, I mailed his azoospermia test results, the DNA report, and the intimate photos of Jarong with that middle-aged man, taken by a private investigator, to his home, demanding that Shun Mu himself sign for the delivery. I hope he likes the divorce gift I sent him. Of course, I didn't play favorites. I sent a copy of the intimate video featuring Jarong and Shun Mu to her other lover as well. I sent the middle-aged man's wife some compromising photos of him with Jarong, along with the child's photo and a hair sample. If she's curious, she can get a DNA test done for the child and the middle-aged man. Better to confirm the facts before starting the fight. After the fact, I kept a low profile and decided to resign, planning to take a good, long break before diving back into my career. Oh, right. I almost forgot to tell Li Lujing to get her head back in the game and return to start planning. Li Lujing is genuinely talented. While I was away on vacation, she poached all the key staff from Shun Mu's company and started a new firm with the same core team. In just 1 month, they snatched all of Shun Mu's company's contracts, causing the business to shrink dramatically. And that's not all. I heard he got beaten up, and his family jewels were smashed. What a sorry state. Even worse, he knows it was Jarong's other lover, that middle-aged man, who did it, but with no proof, there's nothing he can do to him. Jarong was thrown out by my ex-mother-in-law, the middle-aged man's daughter, the one whose best friend she'd been stringing along for years, reportedly got into a physical fight with Jarong. In a fit of rage, the daughter, taking after her mother, disfigured Jarong's face, which led to the middle-aged man completely rejecting her. When Li Lujing told me all this news, I was utterly speechless. I was having a great time out and about, and I really didn't want to hear about this whole mess. Li Lujing complained that I'm a hands-off boss, asking when I'll be back to run the company. I replied that the beautiful seaside scenery and a handsome guy's six-pack abs are waiting for me. I'll come back whenever I get tired of having fun here.